Hi there, Jayco owners. Today in your 2019 Jayco Redhawk, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Steering Stabilizer. A replacement heavy-duty steering stabilizer from Roadmaster is going to further assist your steering wheel in maintaining a straight track when going down the road. It does this using the gas-powered shock absorber with the spring located on it. The spring will not only compress, but it also will pull. So if you turn your wheel in one direction, the spring compresses and it wants to uncompress back to its normal position. If you turn the wheel the opposite direction, you'll see that it would want to stretch our spring, and the spring again would want to pull it back to return to center. The dampener inside assists with the spring to perform this action very fluidly, so it doesn't seem like it's pulling back really fast. The dampener allows it to be very smooth, so you don't even really realize that this is doing a lot of the work in maintaining your vehicle's straight track down the road. Here's your factory steering dampener, and to give you an idea of how much more our new one is going to do over this one, you can see this one here is really just the gas absorption portion, which does want to pull back to center just like this one does, but without the assistance of this spring, it's really not doing a whole lot. It's really mainly there just for the dampening, where if you hit a bump on the road and that bump wants to cause the wheel to go in one direction, it is fighting against the shock to go that direction. We get that with this one, but we also get the additional coily spring movement pulling it back as well. So what this really means for you is you're going to have more energy when you get to your destination, because you weren't fighting your steering wheel so hard to maintain a straight track down the road. The worse the road conditions are, the more you're going to benefit from this. On a nice smooth road, it's not causing your wheel to go back and forth, versus those rougher roads that is going to constantly have pits and potholes that's doing it. This is going to help even that out and make most of those road surfaces feel somewhat similar. Before we install our steering stabilizer, we're going to take it out on our test course. And I can really feel the vehicle swaying back and forth with each bump that I hit. You'll also notice it here in the steering wheel, how it jerks the wheel. We're now going to go into our just regular straight speed bumps, so it's not going to give us so much jarring back and forth motion like we got before. But you can really see the wheel, the way when it hits the bumps on the pavement, how it wants to jerk it, even though you're holding it pretty tight. An upgraded steering stabilizer is going to really help minimize that and bring it back to center so you're not fighting so hard to keep it straight. Now we're going to get into the slalom section of our test course, and here's where you're really going to notice your sway bar and how it affects with your vehicle. As I do some semi-evasive maneuvers, I can really feel it pulling to one side. It kind of throws you to the right and to the left. You can hear the objects in the back kind of banging around a little bit as we make those evasive maneuvers. Now that it's installed, let's head back out on our test course again. We're coming into our uneven bump section first. Oh wow, I can notice a huge difference on how my steering wheel feels from the way it was before to now. Before it was jostulating the steering wheel back and forth pretty hard. You almost couldn't hold it whatsoever. Now it's got a little bit of movement, but for the most part you can almost let go and it's going to take care of itself. We're now heading into our slalom, and when we mimic those evasive maneuvers that you may have, I feel like I have a lot more control over it now. It doesn't want to throw my body back and forth the way it did before. It just really is just night and day difference on how much more control I feel like I have now versus I did before. So whether you're driving on uneven terrains or just made an evasive maneuver, this steering stabilizer is going to help bring your steering wheel back to center and get you driving in a straight path again. Your steering stabilizer comes with custom brackets for your RV. Let's go over that installation together now so you'll have the confidence to do it at home. Before starting your installation, you'll want to make sure you park your motorhome on a level surface, your driveway is often plenty fine, and that you have your steering wheel pointed completely straight. It's going to be important it's straight at later steps in your installation when you're getting your brackets mounted up. We'll begin our installation underneath the front of the vehicle by removing our factory steering stabilizer. Your factory steering stabilizer is attached at two ends The one end is attached to your tie rod. There are 4 nuts that connect to the U-bolts that we need to remove to get it off of there. Use a 13mm socket to remove the nuts. On the other end of your factory steering stabilizer, it will be attached to the frame using 2 bolts on the side of the frame and 1 on the bottom. We'll use a 13mm socket to remove those. I find it easier to take the side bolts out first, so that way it holds itself up, and then you can take out the lower bolt. When you take out the lower bolt, the whole thing's going to come down. We can set it aside. We can now install our new brackets. Prepare your hardware. Take each bolt that comes in your kit, place a lock washer on it, followed by a flat washer. Then take your stabilizer bracket, and we're going to mount the frame one first. So that's going to be our longer bracket with the L-shaped portion on it here. That's going to slide underneath the frame like this, so the slots that are in our bracket are going to line up with our factory weld nuts that are located in the frame. We'll then take the hardware we prepared. 2 are going to thread through the bracket into the side of the frame, and 1's going to thread through the bracket to the bottom of the frame. We can then go back and tighten our hardware down. Pay attention to the bottom of the frame and make sure that your bracket is flush on the bottom. We're using a 17mm socket to tighten down all of our hardware. We'll now get our tie rod end bracket installed. So take the U-bolts that come in your kit and the bracket that comes in your kit. Our bracket's going to install like this onto our tie rod. Slide our U-bolts around it. Slide your bracket on it. Place a flat washer on it, followed by a lock nut. We're going to repeat that for the other side of our U-bolt. And then we'll take the next U-bolt and we're going to slide it around our tie rod and through the bracket just like we did with this one. We'll now take our steering stabilizer. We're going to get it set into place. Take the end that doesn't have the spring on it, and that's going to feed through the passenger side bracket that's attached to the frame. Your bushings should be pre-installed on there, but if they were not, make sure you've got the cup washer followed by one of the bushings slid onto the shaft. Slide it through the bracket. Place a bushing on the other side, followed by the cupped washer, and then use the flange nut to finish it up. And we're just going to have that hand tight for now to hold it in place. We'll then come to the opposite side of our stabilizer. We're going to remove one bushing, the cup washer and the nut. Slide our bracket through. Place our bushing back on, followed by our cupped washer and our nut. We can now go back and tighten down our nuts. When you tighten these down, we want to collapse the bushing, but we don't want to collapse it to the point where it squishes out past our cupped washer. To tighten down the nuts on your stabilizer, you're going to use a 15mm wrench and a 1/4 inch wrench. The 15mm wrench will go on the nut, and the 1/4 inch wrench will hold the shaft to keep it from spinning while you're tightening it down. We'll then repeat the same process on the other side. If you're having difficulties with the 1/4 inch wrench holding the shaft, an adjustable wrench will also work. and may provide you with more surface area, making it easier to hold it. We'll now need to lift up on our stabilizer a little bit. We're trying to make it level going across. So you want to push up on it to get as straight as possible from one bracket to the other. This will give us the best angle for our stabilizer to perform its job. You'll also want to just double check yourself to make sure it's going to clear, because your stabilizer here, this bracket's going to move with your tie rod, so you want to make sure it's not going to hit anything. So double check yourself there as well, because even though you're going for as level as possible, if in the event you might hit something, you may have to tilt it down just a little bit to clear. So just check yourself there. Then tighten down your U-bolts using a 15mm socket or wrench. You'll want to tighten back and forth to make sure they go down evenly. If you can't get a socket in there, you may need to use a wrench. Once you've got that one secure, you'll tighten down your other U-bolt. We can now go back and torque all of our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. For your U-bolts, you may need crow's feet in order to get in there to tighten them down. We're now ready to go test drive our vehicle and make sure everything's working properly. It's best to have somebody look underneath before you leave and turn the wheel on the inside from lock to lock so it goes all the way back and forth to make sure it's going to clear everything and that nothing's going to hit. Once you've made sure everything's going to clear, test drive the vehicle to make sure that it drives straight. If it seems like the vehicle's pulling to one side or the other, you'll want to pull the vehicle back in, make sure your steering wheel is straight, loosen up your U-bolts, just kind of wiggle it around until it's all free and natural, and then tighten them back down again, and then test drive it again. So as you can see here, we have no clearance issues. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster Steering Stabilizer on your 2019 Jayco Redhawk.